A driver with a million miles under his belt walks into a dealership, gets offered the newest disc brake technology on his next build, and turns it down flat, on purpose, every single time. Somewhere between the shop floor and the highway sits a piece of hardware most of the automotive world abandoned decades ago, and the people whose lives depend on stopping an 80,000-pound truck are choosing to keep it anyway. If you assume newer always means safer, wait until you hear what veteran drivers know about heat, cost, and trust that the spec sheet never mentions. And if you're the kind of person who wants the real reasoning behind the machines on the road, stick with this channel, because that's exactly what we dig into. So tell me in the comments, would you trust the tried and true system every mechanic on your route already understands, or the newer tech with the shorter stopping distance? Why would an experienced professional deliberately choose the outdated option? And what does a mountain grade have to do with any of this? This is Trucks United, the channel where we take apart the decisions behind the machines you see on the highway every day and figure out why they actually make sense once you understand the full picture. Today we are talking about drum brakes, why they never disappeared from heavy trucking the way they did from passenger cars, and why a growing number of veteran drivers are pushing back against the industry's slow shift toward discs. Let's start with the basics, because a lot of people assume a brake is just a brake. It is not. A drum brake works by using two curved brake shoes that sit inside a hollow, rotating drum attached to the wheel. When the driver presses the pedal, air pressure pushes those shoes outward against the inside surface of the drum, creating friction that slows the wheel down. It is the same S-cam and shoe design that has been standard in American trucking for generations, and if you have ever heard that distinctive hiss and clunk when a truck releases its parking brake, you have heard a drum system doing exactly what it was built to do. A disc brake, by comparison, works more like the brakes on your car. A caliper squeezes brake pads against a flat, exposed rotor that spins with the wheel. The rotor sheds heat quickly because it is sitting right out in the open air, and the whole system responds fast and predictably. On paper, that sounds like a clear upgrade. So why has heavy trucking been so slow to switch? The first reason goes back to something we have talked about before on this channel, and that is the fail-safe design of the air brake system itself. Heavy trucks in North America run almost universally on air brakes, not hydraulics, specifically because the system is designed to apply automatically if pressure is lost. Spring brakes, the powerful coil springs sitting inside the rear brake chambers, are always trying to clamp down. Air pressure is the only thing holding them back. Drum brake architecture was essentially built hand in hand with that spring brake philosophy for decades, and the mechanical relationship between the S-cam, the shoes, and the spring brake chamber is about as proven and well understood as any system in trucking. Disc brake conversions had to be engineered to replicate that same fail-safe behavior, and getting that engineering exactly right, with the same bulletproof reliability drivers had come to expect, took the industry a long time to get comfortable with. Then there is the cost conversation, and honestly, this one is not close. A drum brake system is significantly cheaper to purchase, and the parts themselves, shoes, drums, hardware kits, are widely available at almost any truck stop or parts supplier in the country. If you blow a set of shoes in rural Nebraska at 2 in the morning, chances are good the local shop has what you need sitting on a shelf. Disc brake components for heavy trucks, while becoming more common, still are not stocked with the same universal availability, and in some regions a driver waiting on disc rotors or specialized calipers can be looking at a much longer, much more expensive repair than a driver dealing with a worn drum. Maintenance culture matters here too. Drum brakes are mechanically simple. An experienced fleet mechanic can inspect, adjust, and rebuild a drum brake system with tools they have owned for 20 years and knowledge they picked up early in their career. Owner-operators in particular, the same people who keep 18-speed manual transmissions alive because they can fix them on the side of the road, tend to gravitate toward components they can service themselves without needing specialized equipment or a trip to a dealer. Disc brakes on heavy trucks often require more precise torque specifications, different diagnostic approaches, and in some cases, proprietary tools that not every independent shop has invested in yet. Now, here's where the story gets genuinely interesting, because drum brakes are not just cheaper and simpler. Under specific heavy-duty conditions, some drivers argue they are actually more forgiving. A drum brake has a larger friction surface area relative to its size compared to many disc setups, and that means the wear is spread out more gradually over the life of the shoes. For a truck doing mostly highway miles with steady, predictable braking, that translates into a longer service interval before the shoes need replacing, and fewer trips into the shop over the life of the vehicle. The counter-argument, and it is a serious one, is heat. When you are riding the brakes down a long mountain grade with a fully loaded trailer, Heat management becomes the single most important factor in whether those brakes keep working. A disc rotor sitting exposed to open air sheds heat far more efficiently than a drum, which traps heat inside its enclosed shape. Repeated hard braking on a steep descent can cause a drum brake to fade, meaning the friction surfaces get so hot that stopping power genuinely drops off. This is one of the leading causes of runaway truck incidents on mountain corridors, and it is the strongest engineering argument in favor of discs for trucks that regularly work in demanding grade conditions. So if disc brakes stop heat fade more effectively and offer shorter stopping distances, why hasn't the whole industry switched already? Part of the answer is regulation, and part of it is simple economics playing out at fleet scale. Federal safety standards in the United States have pushed stopping distance requirements tighter over the past couple of decades, and manufacturers have had to find ways to meet those numbers, regardless of which brake technology they use. Improved drum linings, better air chamber sizing, and refined S-cam geometry have allowed drum systems to keep pace with a lot of those requirements, which has actually slowed the urgency to switch entirely to discs. If a drum system can be engineered to meet the stopping distance rule at a lower cost, a lot of fleet buyers are going to keep speccing drums, especially on trailers where the cost difference across an entire fleet adds up fast. There is also a weight consideration that does not get talked about nearly enough. Every extra pound on a truck's braking hardware is a pound less of legal payload the truck can carry, and disc brake systems, particularly the calipers and mounting hardware, can add meaningful weight compared to a drum setup, especially when you multiply that difference across every axle position on a tractor and trailer combination. For freight operators paid by the ton, that difference is not trivial. But let's be honest about the cultural side of this too, because trucking is never just about the raw engineering numbers. Veteran drivers have decades of trust built into drum brakes. They know how they sound when they are wearing down. They know how they feel through the pedal when they are properly adjusted. They know exactly what a bad drum brake problem looks like before it becomes a dangerous one, because they have seen it, diagnosed it, and fixed it more times than they can count. Asking a driver with 30 years of experience to trust an unfamiliar system, even one with genuine engineering advantages, is asking them to give up a kind of intuitive fluency they built over an entire career. That is not stubbornness for its own sake. That is professional judgment built on real experience, and it deserves to be taken seriously rather than dismissed as an old guy just resisting change. There is also the resale and standardization argument that owner-operators bring up constantly. A used truck with a well-maintained drum brake system is an easier sell in a lot of regional markets, specifically because the buyer knows parts and service will not be a headache no matter where that truck ends up running. Fleets managing hundreds of vehicles also value standardization enormously. If 90% of your trucks run drums, keeping the other 10% on drums too means one training program for your mechanics, one parts inventory, one set of procedures, instead of splitting your maintenance operation across two fundamentally different systems. So where does this actually leave the industry right now? The honest picture is a split one. Disc brakes have made real inroads, particularly on steer axles and on trucks specifically built for mountain-heavy regional routes, where the heat management advantage genuinely matters day to day. Some major manufacturers now offer disc brakes as standard, or as a heavily promoted option on their flagship models, and that trend is not reversing. But on trailers, and on a huge share of long-haul tractors running mostly flat interstate miles, drums remain the dominant choice, and a meaningful number of experienced owner-operators are actively speccing drums, even when discs are offered as the default, simply because the cost, simplicity, and repairability still make more sense for how they actually run their business. Electrification and autonomous driving will eventually reshape this conversation the same way they are reshaping transmissions and cab design across the industry. But braking systems tend to be one of the more conservative corners of truck engineering, and for good reason. Nobody wants to be the fleet that adopted an unproven system a year too early. Change in this part of the industry tends to happen carefully, one long-term reliability study at a time, not in a rush. So the next time you see a rig rolling past with drums on every axle, do not assume that driver is stuck with outdated technology. There is a very real chance they looked at both options, weighed the cost, the maintenance, the parts availability, and decades of hands-on experience, and made a deliberate, informed choice. In an industry built on reliability above almost everything else, sometimes the smartest move is sticking with the system you and every mechanic on your route already trust completely. What do you think? Are drum brakes a smart, proven choice for long-haul work, or is the industry overdue for a full switch to discs? Drop your answer in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this one, Make sure you subscribe to Trucks United for a lot more content just like it. Thanks for watching.